As you know by now, two convicted murderers on the loose after escaping from a maximum security prison in upstate New York. Manhunt is on and new information is just coming in. It's like a plot from a movie, like, yes, Shawshank Redemption. But to people who live up there, it is all too real. And the legislative session, I'd say, in Albany, it is winding down. And, of course, more problems are cropping up. This time, it's not a new corruption case for a change. It's the fallout from all the other corruption cases. Then the video everyone talking about today. Police officer shoving a teenage girl to the ground after responding to calls of a disturbance at a public pool. Why disturbing stories like this are becoming all too common. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. Thanks so much for joining us. Hope you had a good weekend. We start today, though, with that prison break in upstate New York and the message coming from the state police.
They could be literally anywhere.
He's talking about these two guys, David Sweet and Richard Matt, both convicted killers. Sweet serving a life sentence for killing a sheriff's deputy. Matt kidnapped, killed, and dismembered his former boss. So a massive manhunt, as mentioned, underway for them right now. Hundreds of police and law enforcement involved, setting up roadblocks, using bloodhounds, choppers, you name it. They've used power tools, the two inmates here, to cut through the steel wall at the back of their cell. They then made their way to a steam pipe that led to a manhole cover outside of the prison. They put crude dummies in their beds to pass bed check, and this caused Governor Andrew Cuomo to skip a trip to the Belmont Stakes and head directly to the prison. Now, the governor, if you saw this, he went into full law and order mode and tracked the escape route. He was all over the place. Today, Cuomo's saying the escapees definitely had help, and it could have come from the inside. All right, I want to bring in our panel right now. Jeannie Zaino, professor of political science at Iona College and also professor of campaign management at NYU. To our left, Dominic Carter, political journalist and author. Scott Vanderhoff. Scott's an attorney and former Rockland County executive, and Andrew Whitman, our senior political correspondent. You know, we had a little fun with it there, but Scott, when you look at today, the governor, or yesterday, I should say, the governor, he's climbing through the manholes, he's going down the piping. You know, people had a lot of fun with this right now, but, you know, I was a little surprised at how, you know, in it he got. I mean, for a second, I thought he was going to throw on one of those sheriff's hats and say, I'm on the job. I'm going to bring in these two guys myself. I mean,
it's a little strange, isn't it?
Right?
No, it really is. I mean, there are things that happen in prisons a lot. I mean, not breakouts, but it's very strange for the governor to do that, especially missing Triple Crown winner. It's a strange thing. It's a very serious situation,
yeah,
no question, but for the governor to take that kind of active role, first of all, I don't know why you would want to emphasize that we lost two prisoners. I mean, that, first of all, I mean, yeah, it's supposed to be the most secure prison up there. So it's very strange.
Yeah, it hadn't happened, I think, in like 130 years since it was opened. This is the first case.
He may have been looking for ways out of there in case Prepo Hara got a little too close to his dream. No, I was saying this morning, Cuomo seems like a governor looking for a crisis that he can step in and manage and solve. I mean, his numbers have been sliding. He's got some political blowback again in Albany and the feuds that he's picked with Attorney General Eric Schneiderman and with the mayor of New York, Bill de Blasio. And, you know, a good executive lives for a crisis moment because you can step in, manage the crisis, be the face of the crisis management. That's the sense that I got from the governor this weekend. I don't think he's a prison expert or a prison warden. Well,
you know, in all that aside, serious case, serious guys here. And you would think with the amount of planning that went into this, talking about getting your hands on power tools in a prison here, you're drilling, obviously some noise had to be happening. I did think it was interesting, the governor definitively said there was an inside job here that was going down, but $100,000 reward that's put out, historically these things get solved sooner than later, right?
I'm surprised, actually, Richard, that it's gone on this long. Normally, the state police, they're very good, you know, in dealing with situations like this. I think that we would all agree, perhaps it was a bit odd. When I saw the governor, I saw a picture. But knowing his personality, it does not surprise me one bit. You're 1,000% correct. I don't think some governors look for crisis. All governors look for a good crisis. so that their poll numbers can go up. You know, you're the chief executive on the spot. You're there, but this was a little odd. I don't know what the point. The governor retracing their steps. I don't get the logic.
All right, let's go across the river here, Jeannie. Chris Christie, he cannot close the door on, or the gate, if you will, on Bridgegate here. Bill Baroni, Bridget Kelly, two folks under indictment, just want approval to have records subpoenaed that certainly could hurt their old boss here. They want more documents from the law firm that did the internal investigation for Bridgegate. You all remember that report here that came out that obviously was a fluff piece for the governor. Then there's this guy on the screen, Jerry Speziale. Speziale was a sheriff in Passaic County when the Port Authority hired him back in 2010 for a $200,000 a year job. Now, fellow Democrats, he is a Democrat here, were livid because he had raised $1 million and basically was almost running all but unopposed here, and his removal from the ballot was not only going to hurt the ticket, but he took all the money he had left over, more than $500,000, and just gave it to charity. A couple elements in this story for those who followed it closely that's not good news for the governor.
Yeah, and to your point, he's not going to be able to close the gate on this, so to speak. This is going to continue as long as these lawsuits, as long as the legal end of this continues. And that's going to be for a long time. I'm sorry to say to the governor, this is just the beginning. Yep. And we're going to continue to hear a drip, drip, drip as these people are prosecuted and as their lawyers try to defend them. I mean, if you're Bridget Kelly, for instance, look at how much time you're facing in jail with 4 kids, a single woman. You know, they're going to do everything they can, and she's going to do everything she can to defend herself. They all are, and so this is just the beginning for the governor. And if he chooses to run for president, it's going to be even worse because the attention on him will be even more.
And he's got a scheduled now, or he said supposedly there'll be an announcement next month. But in this case, whether it's Kelly, whether it's Wildstein, people even that don't have the same agendas here that are caught up in this, they're all saying the one common thing. If you think for a second that I operated in a vacuum, that someone above me didn't know what was going on, you're out of your mind. Wildstein, who was described as a pack rat, kept all these things. He used to be an internet blogger, a political blogger for all these things for all intents and purposes. He's claiming significantly that Christie leaked the grand jury testimony to as many as 40 different people what was going on, which would be in violation of what the official was allowed to or not. You can do it in an emergency, but you certainly can't do it for political purposes, which at least he's alleging.
Yeah, I honestly don't know why he's even considering running for president at this point, to be very blunt about it. Jeannie's right. I mean, this isn't going to go away. This is, and there's a lot more to this. You know there's something there. When he may have learned how, unsure, but these folks, the way he runs things is the way a prosecutor would. The details matter, like Cuomo. I mean, they're very similar in that respect. It is hard to imagine that there's not an understanding in the governor's office that he didn't know something at some point. So I think you're right. I think this is going to go on. And the worst part about it is the Chinese water torture. It's piece by piece by piece. And I think he's really way out of line in this sense. To stand up immediately and say, see, I told you I didn't know anything. It's going to come back. It's going to come back because the full story isn't out.
And Andrew, that fluff piece that Randy Mastro, thank you. When he did that presser saying, we did a report and we found out that the governor's fantastic. He had nothing to do with it, paid for with taxpayer funds. But the one thing it did was it opened up the door potentially that if there was, and there is now, subpoenas that come down the pike, they got to open up the door and show all the discovery that went into putting together, again, this taxpayer-financed report. And apparently, we don't have corroboration on this, but the word is that some of the stuff that they found in putting it together wasn't flattering. It didn't make its way into the final report, but it paints that narrative. This is not an executive office that was blindsided by what happened on the bridge.
Well, and from my reading on this late last week, the initial response from Mastro and the Mastro's law firm was, we don't have the notes you're looking for, which seems incomprehensible. I mean, a lawyer, a law firm, doing an official investigation for the governor of a state, not keeping the notes on the investigation, if that winds up being the continuing story. This is a firm that was paid millions of dollars in taxpayer money by the governor, basically to exonerate the governor. It doesn't look good. And Scott, to your point, I think Christie's running because this is his only window to run. I mean, he'll never have an opportunity again. He'll be done after this, so may as well. I mean, you can argue the same thing about George Pataki, too.
So, Dominic, I assume I told you so is coming, right?
why would I say?
Because you pretty much say it every week. So go ahead.
Wait. Why would I sit here with such an esteemed panel and say that I told you a year ago that this guy was going to implode, that he was never going to have a chance? Why would I say that?
Here's the one thing I'd like to know. What should he be most worried about right now?
Going to jail?
No, but do you think
Seriously,
Wildstein?
going
Do you
to
think
jail?
Wildstein's the guy, or do you think it's the Baronis or the Kellys or the rest?
Richard, they're all going
It
to
is
tell.
the middle of June right now. We still haven't heard boo yet.
Richard, they're all going to tell his dirt. He should know this. He's a former federal prosecutor himself. You've got a federal prosecutor on this that's twisting the screws in terms of everybody involved. They're all going to drop a dime on the governor. The handwriting is on the wall. It's over, Governor Christie. You know, you might be able to finish your term if it's a good day. On a bad day, you might be looking at an indictment yourself. I mean, it's done.
I can't believe he would be so stupid, and given his background as a U.S. attorney, that he would wind up making mistakes that land him behind bars. I mean, I could see him leaving office before the end of his term. Or as we've seen many, many times in New York, but that being part of a deal or an arrangement that gets him out of office. And this is still many steps down the road.
And we still don't know what the crime was. That's one of the other things that happened as it relates to the bridge. Everybody says this is abuse of power, political malfeasance, whatever you want to call it. But I've had, and you've been here with me, we've had foreign federal prosecutors say, we still can't find exactly what the crime was. We know it stunk, but what's the criminal act that occurred here? Now, if there's perjury or something else, that's one thing. But to this point, politically, it could be dead out of it, but criminally, I don't know. But we're going to find out. I'm just telling you, everything that comes out here, it keeps getting worse and worse for him. All right. When we come back, we told you last week that the clock's ticking on Albany, and it just keeps getting messier in the Capital District. All those corruption cases, too many to note in a family program, are turning the place into a basket case. We got a few stories for you that are going to highlight just how screwed up things really are. And remember Alan Hevesy? Well, former controller who, yes, went to prison for corruption. His son now is a lawmaker, and guess what he's trying to crack down on? If you said corruption, you'd be right. It only gets odder from there.